Hello, buddy. Welcome back to Bright-to-Bias, where we uncover the stories shaping our world. Today, we're diving into a seismic shift in West African politics, a fracture so profound it's threatening to unravel decades of regional unity. The Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS, once a beacon of integration and stability, is teetering on the edge. Why? Because three nations, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, led by fiery leaders like captainibrahimtraore, have walked away from the bloc, forming their own alliance. Is this the beginning of the end for ECOWAS? Or is it a bold new chapter for the Sahel? Let's break it down. Picture this. It's January 28, 2024. The streets of Ouagadougou, Niamey, and Bamako are alive with celebration. Crowds wave flags not of ECOWAS, but of a new alliance, the Alliance of Sahel States, or AES. On this day, the military leaders of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger dropped a bombshell. They were leaving ECOWAS effective immediately. Their reason? They accused ECOWAS of betraying its founding principles, imposing inhumane sanctions, and cozying up to foreign powers, namely France and the West. But to understand the weight of this moment, we need to go back to where it all began. Founded in 1975, ECOWAS was a dream of unity. 15 West African nations came together to promote economic integration, peace, and political stability. From free movement of goods and people to a regional passport, ECOWAS became a model for African cooperation. It even flexed its muscle with military interventions in Togo, Guinea-Bissau, and Gambia. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. The Sahel, home to Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, was a tinderbox of jihadist violence, poverty, and frustration with foreign influence. And ECOWAS, well, it wasn't exactly winning hearts and minds. Here, my brothers and sisters, we would like to thank you for supporting our channel and also plead with you to send us a super thanks and subscribe to our channel to encourage us more. Thank you. Let's set the scene. It's 2022 and the Sahel is in chaos. Mali has seen two coups since 2020, led by Colonel Assimi Goïta. Burkina Faso's captain Ibrahim Traore has just seized power in a dramatic 2022 coup, promising to fight terrorism and end foreign domination. And in Niger, General Abdourahmane Tiani ousts President Mohamed Bazoum in July 2023. ECOWAS responds with fury, closing borders, freezing assets, and even threatening military intervention in Niger. But the juntas don't back down. Instead, they double down, accusing ECOWAS of being a puppet of France and failing to support their fight against jihadists. The sanctions hit hard. In Mali, food prices skyrocketed. In Niger, electricity shortages, caused by Nigeria cutting power supplies, left hospitals struggling. And in Burkina Faso, Captain Traore, a charismatic and defiant leader, called the sanctions illegitimate and inhumane. The people rallied behind him, seeing ECOWAS not as a partner, but as a bully. By September 2023, the three nations formed the Alliance of Sahel States, or AES, vowing to prioritize sovereignty, security, and economic independence. Fast forward to January 29, 2025. The withdrawal becomes official. ECOWAS confirms that Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are out, reducing the bloc to 12 nations. The AES, meanwhile, is moving fast. They announce a joint military force of 5,000 troops to combat jihadist insurgencies and unveil a new biometric passport without the ECOWAS logo. In Burkina Faso, Traore declares this a war of decolonization, framing the AES as a rebellion against Western influence. The crowds love it. but the fallout is just beginning. Let's talk numbers. The Sahel exit, as some call it, strips ECOWAS of 16% of its population, roughly 68 million people, and 7% of its GDP. That's a massive blow to a bloc built on economic integration. Projects like the West African Power Pool, which connects Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali to Nigeria's grid, are now in jeopardy. The ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development faces a crisis, with the AES nations holding 6.38% of its capital and owing hundreds of millions in loans. And then there's the human cost. Citizens of these countries lose access to the ECOWAS Court of Justice, a critical avenue for human rights cases. Meet Aisha, a trader from Bamako. For years, she moved goods freely across West Africa, thanks to ECOWAS's visa-free travel and common tariff system. Now with the AES exit, borders are tightening, tariffs and customs checks are creeping back, and Aisha's business is struggling. Across the region, entrepreneurs like her are asking, will we still travel without hassle? The dream of a borderless West Africa is fading, and ECOWAS's legal umbrella is folding. But here's where it gets murky. The AES isn't just rejecting ECOWAS, it's rejecting the West. Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger have expelled French troops and welcomed Russian support, including the Wagner Group. Captain Traore, in a fiery interview with journalist Alain Foucault, said ECOWAS failed to provide soldiers, logistics, or compassion in their fight against terrorism. Russia, framing itself as a non-colonial partner, is filling the gap. But analysts warn this could deepen instability, as Wagner's presence hasn't exactly calmed the jihadist threat. Now imagine this. It's July 2025, and ECOWAS is holding an emergency summit. The mood is grim. Togo's foreign minister, Robert Dussey, hints at joining the AES, citing ideological alignment. Whispers of other nations, Guinea, perhaps even Chad, considering the same move, are spreading panic. ECOWAS's leadership, led by Nigeria, is scrambling to keep the bloc together, but the damage is done. The withdrawal has emboldened other dissatisfied members, and the specter of fragmentation looms large. So, is this the downfall of ECOWAS? Not quite yet. Some analysts, like Senegalese political scientist Haroun Bah, argue the bloc will survive. Nigeria, Ghana, and Senegal remain committed to integration, and the geopolitical challenges of the region, terrorism, drought, migration, demand collective action. But others aren't so sure. The AES's push for a common currency to replace the CFA franc and their growing ties with Russia signal a deeper divide. If Togo or others follow, ECOWAS could lose its status as West Africa's unifying force. Let's take a leap into the future, 2030. The AES has grown, pulling in more nations. ECOWAS, now a shadow of its former self, struggles to fund its projects. The regional passport is obsolete, and trade has slowed to a crawl. This is the worst-case scenario, but it's not far-fetched. The Sahel nations' exit has exposed ECOWAS's weaknesses, its reliance on sanctions, its perceived bias toward Western interests, and its failure to address the Sahel's security crisis. But the story doesn't end with the Sahel nations walking away. The exit of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger from ECOWAS has sent shockwaves through West Africa's economy, politics, and even its social fabric. From trade routes to regional security, the fallout is reshaping the region in ways we're only beginning to understand. Let's dive into the ripple effects and what could happen next. ECOWAS was built on the promise of a connected economy, goods, services, and people moving freely across 15 nations. But with the Sahel exit, that vision is crumbling. The AES nations, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger account for a significant chunk of West Africa's landmass and trade routes. Niger alone is a critical hub for uranium exports, while Mali and Burkina Faso supply gold to global markets. Without them, ECOWAS's common market is losing its edge. Meet Kwame, a Lagos-based importer who relied on Malian cotton for his textile business. With new tariffs and border delays, his costs have doubled. Across West Africa, stories like Kwame's are becoming common. Data from the ECOWAS Commission shows intra-regional trade dropped by 12% in 2024, with projections of further declines by 2026. The AOS's push for its own trade policies, including a proposed Sahel trade zone, threatens to split West Africa's economy in two. The AES isn't sitting still. In March 2025, they launched the Sahel Economic Pact, aiming to boost trade among themselves and with new partners like Russia and China. Captainibrahimtraore has been vocal, claiming on X that the AES will break the chains of economic dependency. But critics argue this is a pipe dream. The AES nations are landlocked, heavily indebted, and reliant on ECOWAS neighbors like Nigeria for energy. Can they really go it alone? Now let's step into a possible future. July 2026, ECOWAS is reeling from another blow. Togo, a key coastal member, has just announced it's suspending its participation in ECOWAS to explore strategic alignment with the AES. The move comes after months of secret talks between Togolese officials and Captain Traore, who's emerged as the AES's charismatic figurehead. At an emergency summit in Accra, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu accuses the AES of destabilizing the region. Tensions boil over when Senegal threatens to impose its own sanctions on Togo. The crisis escalates when Guinea, another coup-hit nation, sends observers to an AES summit in Bamako. Social media erupts, with many media users speculating that a second wave of exits could gut ECOWAS entirely. The bloc's response? A desperate push for reforms, including a new security fund to counter jihadist threats and a promise to ease sanctions. But for many in the Sahel, it's too little, too late. This scenario might sound like fiction, but it's rooted in real tensions. Togo's foreign minister has already praised the AES's bold vision, and Guinea's junta has been cozying up to Mali's leadership. If coastal nations like Togo defect, ECOWAS could lose access to critical ports, further crippling its trade ambitions. The bloc's survival hinges on keeping its remaining members united, but that's easier said than done. While ECOWAS scrambles, the AES is forging ahead. In April 2025, they launched the Sahel Defense Force, a 10,000-strong joint military unit trained with Russian support. Posts on the media show gleaming new barracks and drones patrolling the desert, with captions like, "The Sahel is rising." But the reality is messier. Jihadist attacks haven't slowed. Burkina Faso reported 1,200 deaths in 2024 alone, and Russia's involvement comes with strings. Wagner's operations in Mali have been linked to human rights abuses, and Niger's uranium deals are increasingly tied to Moscow's interests. In this imagined future, the AES's military push is a double-edged sword. The Sahel Defense Force scores victories, but at a cost. Villages like this one in Mali are caught between hope and fear. The AES promises jobs, schools, and hospitals, funded by new trade deals with China. But analysts warn that replacing French influence with Russian or Chinese dominance is just trading one master for another. And with ECOWAS sanctions still biting, the AES's economies are struggling to deliver on their lofty promises. Lost in the geopolitics is the human toll. The Sahel's exit has deepened divides between urban elites in ECOWAS's coastal states and rural communities in the Sahel. Over 2 million people are displaced in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, with aid agencies struggling to operate across divided borders. The ECOWAS free movement protocol, once a lifeline for migrants, is unraveling. Families are split, and cross-border communities, like those along the Nigeria-Niger border, face new barriers. Stories like this are becoming common. The AES's biometric passport, while a symbol of sovereignty, isn't recognized by ECOWAS states. Travelers face delays, bribes, and uncertainty. And with the AES pushing for a new currency to replace the CFA franc, economists predict inflation and trade disruptions could hit the Sahel hard. The dream of Pan-African unity feels further away than ever. So where does West Africa go from here? ECOWAS still has the potential to reinvent itself, maybe by prioritizing security over sanctions or giving smaller nations a bigger voice. The AES, meanwhile, is a bold experiment in sovereignty, but it's walking a tightrope. Will Captain Traore and his allies deliver the prosperity they've promised, or will the Sahel's gamble backfire? One thing's certain, the divide between these two visions is reshaping the region's future. For now, the AES is riding a wave of popular support. Captain Traore, General Chiani, and Colonel Goita are seen as heroes by many, promising a future free from foreign control. Posts on the media show citizens celebrating, with some claiming the AES nations are growing faster than the ECOWAS average and reducing poverty. But the road ahead is uncertain. Can the AES deliver on its promises, or will it crumble under the weight of sanctions, debt, and ongoing violence? The story of ECOWAS in the Sahel is a tale of broken trust, bold defiance, in a region at a crossroads. Will ECOWAS reinvent itself to win back its lost members? Can the AES forge a new path for the Sahel, or will it fall into the same traps it accuses ECOWAS of? Only time will tell, but one thing is clear: West Africa will never be the same. What do you think? Has ECOWAS failed its people, or is the AES a reckless gamble? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to Bright Tobias for more stories that matter. Until next time, stay out of trouble.